So we've just had the Brazilian Grand Prix. What a fantastic, fantastic race we've had. George Russell gets his first win. A Mercedes 1-2. Let's get straight through it and see how they managed to get the result. Absolutely mega drive from George Russell. He led from the start, got away really, really well. So did Lewis Hamilton alongside him, to be honest with you. Surprisingly, Verstappen went for the mediums again, so that meant the threat from Verstappen from the start was kind of off for the Mercedes. Surprised they went for that strategy again, but I think they were just looking at strategy through the race and see if they can pin Mercedes later on. We led away as we were. We did see the best starter there with Bottas and Stroll. They both made up 3 places on the start there. But then as we got around the circuit on lap 1, we seen Daniel Ricciardo hit and take out Kevin Magnussen, which is a real shame for Haas, who started in P8 and were looking for some good points this weekend. A bit of a clumsy move from Daniel Ricciardo took him out, and that caused the safety car on lap 1. Then from the safety car restart, it got really, really interesting. George slowed all the way up the hill, as you would, so you don't get the drag all the way down that long straight. Managed to get a jump on Russell, but Max Verstappen was really right up there with Lewis Hamilton. Went around the outside, did Max Verstappen. Would have made him on the inside for turn 2. Came together. Did look like a racing incident, to be honest, but it did take Lewis Hamilton off. They both rejoined 8th and 9th. It meant that Verstappen had some damage. He had to pit for a wing. He was all the way at the back of the grid. Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris also knocked into each other on that restart. Again, we'd seen Charles Leclerc go straight into the barrier, and I thought we'd have another safety car, but he managed to pull out and continue. Surprisingly, it was just a front wing damage. That was Charles Leclerc's race pretty much done from there, you'd thought. He ended up at the back of the grid, back of the field with that, racing through with Verstappen. And then we had just a battle at the front with George Russell and Perez. We had Sainz right up there as well at that point. He'd made up quite a few places because of the incidents, cars taking each other out in front. Race steadied, and it looked like George Russell and we'd see Perez and Sainz for the battle up front. Steadied, we'd got a mix of into softs and mediums, different cars going for different compounds. The 2 Ferrari starting on the mediums, so they didn't get away well, got jumped by Norris off the line, and then they sort of made their way back through, and then right at the end we got another virtual safety car on lap 53 when Lando Norris went out. That was due to an engine issue. He just sort of seemed to cut off, or gearbox, it looked like, lost drive, went into anti-stall, and it looked like they'd clear that under a virtual safety car, but they'd struggled to move that car. We got a full safety car on lap 55, and then we ended up with pretty much a 11 lap race we had right until the end when the safety car went in. At that stage, Lewis Hamilton fought his way back up through the field, up to second place. Carlos Sainz, Perez, at that stage on the virtual safety car restart, we had the 2 Mercedes on softs, Perez on mediums, brand new mediums, and Sainz and Leclerc and pretty much everyone else from the back there on the softs. Alonso pitted, got a brilliant strategy call from him. I think they were the strategy of the day with Alonso. He ended up in P5. Absolutely mega racing up until there. We've seen Sainz all over the back of Perez. He managed to get through him a couple of laps after the safety car, but that meant the 2 Mercedes could pull away about a 3-second gap then between Hamilton and Russell. It looked like we've got a battle between the 2 Mercedes, but Russell held out well. Hamilton couldn't get into the DRS zone. It was a middle sector of George Russell which just kept him ahead up to the crucial DRS point, but Yeah, just couldn't get into that zone, Lewis Hamilton, which was a bit surprising. I thought he'd be on it, but maybe some car damage from his incident with Verstappen cost him on that one. Um, Surprisingly, Verstappen got a 5-second penalty for that one. I thought it was a racing incident, to be fair. He had to leave him room. He was on the inside. And Lewis maybe should have left him a bit more room. I know it was a bit down there from Verstappen, but he was alongside. And surprised Verstappen got the penalty there on that call. Same with Lando Norris. He got a 5-second penalty for his touch with Charles Leclerc. He took that on the first pit stop. And I thought that would cost him really, but obviously double DNF really early on for the two. Well, not early on, but lap 53 from the two McLarens. That's a big hit for them in their race with Alpine up at the front. Perez then, after the safety car restart on lap 60, 59, 60, dropped down behind Sainz, Leclerc, Alonso, and then his teammate. Well, he kind of let his teammate free. I think that was going to happen anyway. But Red Bull had sort of said to Verstappen that, look, he'll go past, and if you can't get him past either the Ferraris or the Alpine, then he'll drop back and let that pace back to Perez's. And considering Perez is going for P2 in the constructors in drivers' championship, and you know, Red Bull like to see that out with the dominant car that they've had. But surprisingly, Verstappen defied team orders on that one. Strong statement saying, "Look, don't ask me to do that again." Laying down the law and saying, "Look, I'm the boss here, and I'll decide on if I'm going to let anyone through or not." A bit surprising considering the amount of times Perez has played the team game brilliantly last season, even this season. We've seen that before. He's let him past. Maybe wasn't the right call from Verstappen on this occasion. You know, Perez might find hardball now going forward following the decision from Verstappen. Or is it a clear sign that Verstappen is, you know, the team leader there and Perez a clear number 2 driver for Red Bull? But that's a bit of a mess that they probably didn't really need to sort out. Vettel was up into P7 at that point, but then dropped down P11. He was up for a brilliant race. Same with Valtteri Bottas at P5 at that point and dropped down to P9 in the end. But Russell got the win, and it was a fantastic drive from him. You know, going through 2 safety car restarts, Lewis Hamilton right behind him. I think it would have been a bit of a tighter battle had Hamilton stayed up front with him, especially with the strategy calls. It would have been interesting to see them 2 Mercedes. But Mercedes are back. That was a big one from this weekend. They got the 1-2. And let's start with the team, start with them. Brilliant from Russell. He led from start to finish. Brilliantly on the safety car restarts. Kept Perez behind him at early doors and then Sainz. And then managed to keep Hamilton back after the final safety car on lap 60, for both on softs. It looked like it'd be a good battle. With their managed to keep Hamilton out of the DRS zone, which was crucial for him. Lewis Hamilton had a pretty eventful race. Started P2, good start. Not the best safety car restart on lap 1. Allowed Verstappen alongside, and the incident there, like I said, he came out. Well, they both dropped down to P9 at one point. He then pitted on lap 29 for mediums. He came out in P4 at that stage. They had the pace even after his incident. Hamilton managed to make his way forward, passing, you know, all the cars ahead of him at that stage quite easily. Lap 55 pitted. He passed Perez at that point when he came out for the pits on the mediums. He then pit again on lap 49 for the softs. They were all scrubbed softs, and it would have been interesting to see the battle then. He had about 10 seconds to gain on Russell. It looked like he was in for a clear second. He got the chance to get the win, but couldn't quite pull that off. But a brilliant team result for them. Mercedes finally get a race win this season. Didn't expect that to happen, and this was kind of their last chance, really. I think with the long straights in Abu Dhabi, I don't see that happening there for them. The Red Bull surprisingly off the pace this weekend. strange strategy calls as well. A bit of a sloppy weekend from them. They've just not been on it, which we've, surprising considering they've won so many of the last 5 or 6 of the last 7 Grand Prix or something like that, and they've been absolutely mega all season. So I guess they can be let off with that. I'm sure they'll be back in Abu Dhabi and on fire there, back on song. Strange that they had the highest deg, which car that they've been the best on in race conditions this season. So like we were saying before, a bit of a mess that they'll sort out with the Perez and Verstappen call. Surprising that they've done that there. Obviously, Verstappen's race got hit by Hamilton. He then had to pit, which meant he was way down at the back. It didn't seem to make the most of his car up until he got up into the P9 or 10 at the safety car restart on lap 60. He managed to make them passes then, but only finished in P6 in the end. Surprising actually, because I thought he'd be right back up there, especially at that virtual safety car, and even early on couldn't seem to make up the most of it. Must have had heavy damage on that Red Bull. Perez, obviously the strategy and the way they called that, he ended up on the new mediums right at the end, didn't have any softs left, and had he pitted, he would have fallen way back and probably would have been in the same position, and then he finished P7. Shame for him in his fight for P2 in the Drivers' Championship. Ferrari, they pulled it back, to be honest with you. Charles Leclerc ended up 4th after looking like he was out of the race with a wing straight on lap 2 on the race start of the VSC with his hit with Norris. He was back at lap P18 after that pit, and then came in for softs about lap 22. He back out in 17th, and then he was up to about P12, and then down to P8 when he pit on lap 45 again for softs, and then brilliant driving up to P4 in the end. Carlos Sainz, he started in 7th on the mediums, up to P3 after the shenanigans at the front with Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Pit on lap 18. He got a slow scruffy lap there, which meant that Hamilton was through on him on that stage. He came out P8, ran P3 until the softs and the pits. Went in for mediums and then pit again on lap 54 for P2 on the softs for him. And then solid result, P3 for him. McLaren's double DNF, like I said, Norris out with the glitch and Danny Ricciardo hitting to Kevin Magnussen on that one. The Haas, disappointing for Kevin Magnussen, started high up in 8, got hit by Danny Rick, no fault of his own. Mick Schumacher had an eventful race, started at P12, was up to P10 after the starts, and then he was fighting for from P13 with Zhu, but ended up got back into P10, but then obviously with the safety car, the faster cars of like the 2 Ferraris and the Ferrari of Leclerc and Verstappen passing him, kicked him out of that top 10 position. Vettel and Alonso having an awesome race as well, meant that he didn't get the points, unfortunately for him. It looked like a solid race, but it's a shame for him there. The Aston Martins, Vettel was looking on it for a brilliant result up into the safety car, and that really screwed him over at that point. He then fell down the field. He was up to 5th place, like I was saying earlier, or 7th place actually, in some solid points and a solid pace. He had some good battles up at the front. Made his way up to 4th at one point after Sainz pitted. Strategy just didn't work out for him in the end and ended up 11th, which is a bit of a shame for him. Stroll had an eventful race. He started in P15, he was down to 12th after the start, which was a decent start from him, made up 3 places again. He's had another good start after last weekend as well for him, so that's really, really good to see. He then pit on lap 50, and then ended up with a point. Surprising, it didn't look like that he was on for him. He had a bit of a scruffy race all over the place. The AlphaTauris, Gasly started in 10th, finished 14th. Didn't really have the pace on them this weekend. Yuki Tsunoda pit lane start, finished in P17. Again, not a brilliant race for them this weekend. Alfa Romeo, finished Bottas P9. He was in P5 at one stage. Again, I think the safety car at the end really screwed his race. He was on some solid, really good points for them, but it's a shame for him. But at least he's got a couple of points there in P9. Zhu, he finished in 12th. Not a fantastic race, really, all round steady. Alonso P5 from P17. He's an absolute master. He's brilliant at this. Brilliant overtaking moves around the outside of Bottas and turn 6 and 7 early on was one of the moves of the race. And Ocon started in P16 up to P14 early on, and then up to about P7 around the pit stop paces, and then he was in a battle or ahead of Alonso and Bottas, but at the restart, team telling him not to sort of fight Alonso. Heavy words on that one. Surprising, but it finished P8. The Williams of Albon finished P15 and Latifi 16th. Just a solid race at the back for them, I suppose. Nothing exciting or for them at any point. The overtake of the race for me was Verstappen down to turn 1. He passed Ocon and Bottas, both places in one corner. It was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, Mercedes are back. They've got a 1-2, their first win of the season. What a way to win it, a place to win it. Lewis Hamilton loves this place. And off to the last race, in Abu Dhabi, they'll go in with some confidence, and that'll give some big confidence up into the season, considering how far back they were. I mean, they've made up about a second to the cars in front of me, and at one point they were nearly 1.8 seconds off the pace. So to make up that time has been an absolutely mega job from them this season, to get their first win. That will really give them the confidence, and hopefully we'll see a title fight with Ferrari and Mercedes and the Red Bulls next season. So it's really good to see them come on song and fix us up for a real battle, hopefully for next season. But yeah, that's the story of the race. Absolutely mega overtaking incident, everything in this Brazilian Grand Prix. We had a win for Russell yesterday. He's managed to get his first win Formula 1 again today. Two brilliant performances from the Mercedes. It all sort of worked out this weekend, and they seem to have the fastest car in race pace really on it, which was brilliant to see. Really tight battle up for P2 in the constructors with the two Mercedes and the two Ferraris in them positions. It'll be a tight battle right at the end, but they had damage limitation because it looked like Ferraris will be way off at one point, but for that safety car bringing Leclerc and Sainz right back in contention with right behind the two Mercedes. But it looks like a brilliant battle on that for the constructors front. Surprising Red Bulls off song, but they'll be back no doubt next weekend. A bit of a scruffy race from Max, and Perez just wasn't, the strategy didn't really quite work out for him in the end. This didn't have the pace, which was a bit of a shame for them. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.